prepping some things for the garden as usual. There's always something to do. So sometimes there's so many different tasks to do that it's quite a process to choose which thing to do first, because some things are time sensitive in terms of things that need to be done out in the garden before the sun gets all the way up and the plants work out the garden, prioritizing healthy food. You can see why semi-freeform locs is such a wonderful option for today's Afro woman. Subscribe, like, and comment. This is Body-Culinary, and I'm in the food prep area, and we're prepping some things for the garden as usual. There's always something to do. So sometimes there's so many different tasks to do that it's quite a process to choose which thing to do first, because some things are time sensitive in terms of things that need to be done out in the garden before the sun gets all the way up and the plants can't take and the new baby plants can't take the heat, in addition to sometimes prepping or having things ready for my own being and my family in terms of things to eat and having some things ready, throughout the day. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be sharing that with you. Okay, so something I just did very quickly. I'm out of lentil sprouts. So these are mung beans. And for folks that may still eat at the Asian restaurants, quite often there are mung bean sprouts inside of the different stir fries and things. And so mung beans have a tremendous amount of nutrition, and they're very inexpensive. So although lentils are one of my favorite because they also don't spoil as quickly. Rather than keep going out to buy more lentils, I'm going to use the things that I already have in my food prep area, and this is mung beans. So I'm going to sprout these, and I'm going to use them living for those folks that eat cooked food. And want something inexpensive and that's easy to prepare. Mung beans are a really nice option. They have loads of nutrition, very, very high in protein. So for folks that ask me, where do you get your protein? This question still, one of the staples in my home is mung beans, right? So I'm going to leave these to soak in filtered water. I do have a water purifier here. You always just want to drink the best, cleanest water that's available to you. So I prefer, ideally, the fresh fruits and vegetables, the living water that's inside of them. So my apron is falling off, and yes, I'm wearing an apron. It's my garden apron, because sometimes I can put different things in the pockets, and I'm big on putting things in pockets. Your cell phone, your keys. If I have to go and take something out, I need the keys, right? So some of the things I've prepped already today are tea for myself and my sister, and the tea that I prepped today is guava leaf tea. So so a lot of teas you can steep them in the sun or in a mason jar, or for those folks that boil and steep the tea. There are different ways that we can use the stem, the roots, and the leaves. Now, on to what I'm going to be prepping today is some sprouting seeds for buckwheat. And now as I open the container, I just remembered I also have alfalfa seeds. So all of these different plants have different personalities, just like different species, and they grow different. Some of them require more or less water, and when it comes to sprouting for protein, the seeds need slightly different environments, but they all need moisture and at some point some sunlight, and they need an environment that's not too hot or too cold. If it's too hot and too much moisture, you can get bacteria in it, which is not safe, and you'll see that with mold and discolorations. Or if it's too cold, it's not an environment. It's not like a warm, moist environment like the womb, a mother's womb, or the womb inside the dirt and the soil that would be conducive to growth, right? To the sprouting of the germination process. So warm and safe with moisture is an environment that allows for the seeds to sprout and germinate, and for all that nutrition to be activated and to come out, right? I like to paint pictures. So I have a bunch of organic buckwheat sprouting seeds, right? And then I also have some organic alfalfa seeds here. So I'm going to sprout these too, right? Oh, look, one fell out. So you can see what the buckwheat seed looks like. And then also in the bulk area inside of health food stores or your local food co-op, you can often see buckwheat groats. Some people toast them, or they have them, I'm going to eat them like fresh and living. So you choose what works for you. But I want to sprout these so I can get a buckwheat lettuce. And I'm big on encouraging folks to grow something from wherever you are. So I started out inside of an apartment in a colder climate. So I did lots of things for years. I've grown greens and sprouts, wheatgrass. A lot of it was experimenting, but I was open to learning because I was very determined that I was going to grow something. So buckwheat lettuce is something that you can definitely grow, a type of microgreen, if you will, that you can grow inside your home or in little trays. I grew up with my grandma Lou, doing everything and making so many things on these plastic lunch trays. So you can find those at a restaurant supply district. I encourage you, if you can find them not being used in your home, or people collect things over the years, food prep equipment, and don't use it. So rather than go out and buy a lot of new things, look around. I'm sure there are many things that people, when they got married or just collecting equipment, or maybe get together with some other women folk and trade off things that you may not be using, like a food processor or GRATER or whatever appliance that somebody else may have a use for it. And I'm big on encouraging folks to create, if you will, like a share economy or honorable economics. It's a whole other system of economics, because then we're not putting out more money and there are things and currency around that we're not using. So on to the buckwheat. I keep lots of jars, so I'm gonna grab one of these jars. And I have a tendency, if you do use plastic, and sometimes I will use plastic because I'm between the garden and food prep area, and sometimes things fall a lot, or if you ever have young people around you, things can have a tendency to drop. So do check underneath to see if it's BPA-free plastic. Do the best you can with what you have. I have a tendency to really like containers where I can see what's going on the inside. So you can measure if you like. Most of the time I don't measure things, but then also there are times where I do like to measure in terms of being like a scientist inside the food prep area if I want to repeat either a recipe or see how something came out right, or track what didn't come out the way that I wanted it to. So I'm going to take a 1/4 cup of the buckwheat seeds and I'm going to put them inside. Well, now I got to think. These are going to go for lettuce, so I'm not going to sprout these in here. So these I'm going to put in a different container. So I'm going to put this in a clear container so I don't have to get my hand all the way down in there. So I want a good amount of seeds. So that's a quarter, so I'm going to use a 1/2 cup. So I want to use a good amount that's going to cover the whole entire lunch tray. All right, I'm going to put some filtered water on high. I don't want to put enough. So different nuts and seeds and legumes and beans, but I'm not sprouting any beans. Some of them swell a lot as they're soaking, and some don't. And some things swell and to like triple or quadruple the size out of the container. That's not going to be the case with the buckwheat. But I do want them to sprout so that the seed can begin to open up. And after I've soaked it for maybe like all day, tomorrow or the early day tomorrow, or maybe even later this evening, I can put them onto a tray of soil or whatever the growing medium is going to be. So that's my buckwheat. It's not hard. It's a lot of times you'll just learn just like rhythms and an order for what you want to prep in the food prep area. It's patience. I look at it as a relaxing meditation. And there's so many other things that we can do with our time that's not productive and not even necessarily relaxing. Okay, so now I have some alfalfa seeds, and I like to be careful because these can have a tendency to spill. And then being that the alfalfa seeds are so small, I like to work with something that's dry so that my seeds, just like flax seeds, are sticky, that they don't get stuck to everything. So let's see. For the scientist in me, I'm going to use I'm going to use a little measuring spoon. And sometimes using measuring spoons, I don't use them all the time again, but sometimes it can be good to really allow you to have a frame of reference for a serving of something. to repeat a recipe. It's also, I think, good for people that use sweeteners and added salts, even if it's Himalayan or Celtic or Celtic sea salt, to have an idea of how much added sugar and salt. So sometimes using the spoon measurements, right? Like if you look, for example, this is a teaspoon, right? So in addition, if there's added salt, not counting the sodium that is in many packaged foods. So I'm not a big packaged food person. I prefer everything fresh. But this will give you an idea of how much you're adding, right? Because many of us don't realize for certain things we're eating servings for numerous people for numerous days. And that can have all kind of other results. So in any event, I'm going to take the alfalfa seeds. These, I think I'm going to soak them right in the jar because these can also sprout in the jar. So now if you're just starting, you may not want to put huge amounts of seeds in there if you're not familiar to see how it comes out, right? And you also, especially with alfalfa seeds, can have a tendency to mold. They're much more watery, they have more water content. So you want to not be mindful of not overcrowding the jar with too many seeds. So I'm going to put some. So this is a nice big wide mouth jar, and I use these jars for lots of purposes, also because they don't hold any kind of odor. Excuse my nails, it just came out of the garden, so do keep a brush in there. So I'm going to put some water to cover the alfalfa seeds. So one thing that's consistent with all of the seeds, they will need water to begin the sprouting or the germination or the growing process. So they're dormant, and once you add the water and you put them in a certain environment, they will start to sprout. When people say sprouts, there are different kinds. I'm going to make sure everything is wet in there. So see, was that hard? No, it's just a matter of know-how. And a lot of these things are things that go on, that I go through when I'm coaching folks that just really want to live a more natural lifestyle. I prefer cruelty-free, but I've learned, similar to my grandma Lou, to meet people where they're at. Everybody can benefit from eating more fresh fruits and vegetables. And I have definitely found that the more you eat fresh fruits and vegetables, your palate will change, and you start to crowd out the cravings for the other things. Your elimination starts to move and groove better and more regular, and you start to actually desire healthier foods that don't leave waste on your waist. You can quote me with that one. A little corny joke. Right, so that's it for this right here. I have to let this soak, so that's why it's a good practice to always have something soaking and sprouting. It's just a rhythm. So again, I find that I'm working with plants in general makes you much more present to food, and is one of the reasons why I would definitely say that plants are very important to losing excess adipose tissue or body weight, or not muscle weight, but losing excess fatty tissue, unhealthy fatty tissue on the body, because then we're allowing things to drop away that we don't need. And rather than just think of dieting, it's a mindset and a mentality of eating what it is that you enjoy. Okay, so the alfalfa seeds are inside of the jar so that they can soak and germinate. And then I put a piece of screen on the top. This is the top that usually comes with most of the mason jars. You can buy replacement tops. So I took off the metal piece and just put the screen there. So now when I'm ready to rinse it, it'll be easier for me to rinse it, and also to store it either in a dish rack or to store it in a bowl, right, if you don't have a lot of counter space, at an angle. So I don't want the seeds to cover the mouth, but I do want the water at some point after it's done soaking. I want the water to drain off of it so that they can grow inside of the jar, right? And then also you can store them inside the jar too. So that's going to be the alfalfa sprouts. So I have 3 things now that are soaking: the mung beans, the alfalfa, and also the buckwheat, which are starting to swell already. So those are 3 types of staples that you can have inside of your house to grow microgreens, and you do get your money's worth. It gets so much more out of it, rather than, it's not a chore, it's very relaxing, and you're learning about the food. And I tell you, growing food, any type of food, in addition to relaxing, gives you a whole nother respect for the process of growing and nurturing food to the point where it's grown to a point where you can eat it. It's and consume it and share it with others. Then the other part is preparing it in ways that are very delicious. What you are producing on your own, whatever kind of living space you are in, you're producing things that you can eat. That gives you a tremendous feeling of satisfaction, in addition to it's cruelty-free. So I'm about to go out into the garden, and I'll continue to be sharing some things with you. Do make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you found some value, and share the video with someone who you know could use some inspiration and some motivation. I'm encouraging folks, males and especially women and young women, to spend good quality time with yourself. You know, the money, we spend so much money on the movies and other things, and I'm not making those things wrong, but they're wrong, but there are other options for good quality, peaceful, relaxing time that you can spend with yourself in terms of beautifying your home and learning to grow food from wherever you are. It's a really great use of your time. So share the video with someone who you know could use some motivation and some support. Many of us would change the way that we eat and start growing if we had more of a circle of influence or friends and support that were doing the same thing. So that's what I love to do. So anything to do with food, fitness, and gardening, and really celebrating your natural beauty, your unique beauty on the planet, that's what this channel is for. So do check out Body-Culinary on Instagram. Hit the notification bell so you can be notified of whenever I update and upload videos. And if you're interested in being coached in a natural lifestyle, you can hit me up on bodyculinary.com. I do personal training. I really specialize in women exercising at home. If you have a really busy schedule, even if you work, I do coach people online in terms of food preparation classes with a focus on healthy eating and living foods. That is the foundation. That can be catered to wherever you are at, in addition to gardening and all the other little nuances that go with enjoying this natural lifestyle. So when it's a treat, there's no need to cheat. All right, folks, create a great day. So everybody can grow something.